Stakes Fantasy Football Show on Better Sports Network.
Seven o'clock in the p.m. Eastern Time Zone. Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness history on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show right here on the Better Sports Network, as this is the first time ever we are going to be covering a live draft. Yeah, that's right. Everybody we're covering tonight, these 12 teams in the Fantasy Pros Championship have ponied up $350 for their shot at a $1 million grand prize. Will the $1 million winner come from this draft? We're going to find out as we take you through it tonight. I am Eric Balkman from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and of course the FFPC. Joining me on the airwaves tonight is a longtime FFPC player, a former FFPC multi-league champion many times over, a guy who plays in this contest, a guy who plays in a lot of the FFPC contests. He's here to critique based on what he's seen so far. You follow him on Twitter at Dave Terp. It is Dave Terpoilli. Dave, welcome in tonight, man.
How we doing? Ready to go?
We're doing great. We're very excited to do this draft tonight because anytime you can work down $350 for a shot at $1 million, that is something we want to cover. And by the way,
free look.
It is a free look. You don't often get stuff like this, but you will get one tonight, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to participate in this competition, you can join the FFPC, myffpc.com, and load up your player account with $350. Remember, if you sign up for a 3-pack, you get a $50 discount on your third team. You can have 3 swings at $1 million. This is the Fantasy Pros Championship at myffpc.com. The FFPC main event will start again next week for slow drafts. That is a $1 million grand prize. FFPC Dynasty Leagues going off each and every day. We have 2 separate FFPC best ball tournaments, a $200,000 grand prize in one, $50,000 grand prize in the other. And then, of course, if you want to join the closed 12-team leagues, those start at $5 and up from there. So you can definitely join that all at myffpc.com. We are covering the Fantasy Pros Championship tonight. The draft is underway. I'll just give you the quick and dirty lowdown of who's picking tonight. Tim and Brad Cruz from Michigan. They are longtime FFPC players playing a lot of high-stakes stuff. Very, very talented drafters. Steve Hawley is drafting from the 2 spot tonight. Steve Hawley, ladies and gentlemen, is a former national champion, 6-figure winner as well. Zachary Watson is going to be drafting from the 3-hole tonight. We are looking at Kings Stay Kings drafting cleanup tonight. Another, again, a former champion of so many FFPC leagues. He is drafting 4th. Christopher Bowen is in the 5 spot. Alex Balazzo, chef to the stars out in California, is drafting in the 6 spot tonight. Another former KFFSC main event champion, Darren Larson, is in the 7 spot tonight. Chad Weezer follows Larson, and then Thomas O'Brien in the 9 spot. Robert Schogel is drafting 10th. Pay the Manning, Greg McLean, is drafting in the 11th spot, and then rounding things up tonight is indeed Kenneth Ivanowski drafting from the 12th spot. We have a lot of league titles. We have a lot of 6-figure winners in the draft tonight. So if you want to learn about how to draft in this contest, we're going to give you the crash course on it tonight. We are already underway here, Terp, as we look at this. Tim Cruz, no surprise, with Justin Jefferson first overall. Jamar Chase goes off the board to Steve Hawley at the number 2. Again, not a lot of surprises there. Travis Kelce at the 103 to Zachary Watson. And then we see Tyreek Hill jump up to the 104 tonight. And we'll talk about this in a second, but bear in mind that Tyreek Hill is normally going at the 107. And this was prior to finding out that we'll get into it, but there's some stuff going on off the field. But he didn't fall tonight. He went up. We'll get into that in a little bit. Tyreek Hill at the 4, Christian McCaffrey at the 105. And I'm sorry, heavy T on air, Tyler Soto, our producer, the man behind the glass tonight. I forgot. Go ahead and bring up that board so everybody could see it. I totally forgot. Nobody wants to see mine and Terp's mugs. They want to see the draft board tonight. So here's where we're at right now. You're looking at Christian McCaffrey at the 5, Cooper Kupp to Alex Balazzo at the 6, Austin Eckler to Rosenhaus Factor. That's the KFFSC champion, Darren Larson there at the 7. Stephon Diggs off the board at the 108. The first rookie goes off the board at the 109 to Jerkstore. Jerkstore is Thomas O'Brien tonight. You're looking at the second tight end off the board in the first round. We'll talk about this too. Mark Andrews, followed by Garrett Wilson at the 111 to Greg McLean, and then CeeDee Lamb at the 112. That rounds out the first round. The first pick I want to talk to you tonight, Terp, about is Tyreek Hill. This is a guy who has been accused of assault, and I believe there's an ongoing criminal investigation in South Florida about him boarding a private ship and then slapping somebody in the back of the neck, offering him, again, I saw this on Pro Football Talk, offering the guy he slapped $200 to essentially forget about the whole thing. The guy turned it down, and now this could be a much more expensive route for Tyreek Hill, not only in terms of what he might settle for if there are no criminal charges, if there's a civil suit, but also in terms of if he's going to be suspended, how much money is he losing in this? Normally, Tyreek Hill goes at the 107. I would think he would drop towards the end of the first round tonight. He goes at the 104. How surprised were you to see Hill jump up to the 104 turf?
I don't think personally he's going to get suspended, so I don't think he's going to drop much. I mean, if he misses a game, maybe. I don't think he gets much more than that. I mean, it seems like it was a lot more overblown. Seems like just a cash grab right now. Obviously, he was in the wrong, but 140 is a good selection. I would have took Cooper Kupp personally, Christian McCaffrey. But right after that is right where Tyreek Hill should fall in. So I have no issues with the pick at all. I mean, if he falls a little bit, I mean, it won't be much, maybe a pick or two down to like you said, the end of the first round. But I don't think anything major.
I will bring this up here from the let's see, what did I want to talk about here? Oh, Cooper Kupp. Let's talk about him at the 6. So this is a guy that was going off as the number 1 overall pick in a lot of drafts last year. Because of what he did in 2021, and then obviously got hurt. But Terp, he was producing before he got hurt, even in that Rams offense, which was
going to be the wide receiver 1 again if everything.
Right, and so now do you view Cooper Kupp as a value here?
He's a great value. He's one of my favorite first round picks this year. What are his downsides? Obviously, injury again. And 2, the Rams just being god-awful, and then him resting when it actually counts at the end of the season. Besides that, who else is on that team? Nobody. Cam Akers, Tyler Higbee, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, a nice shiny rookie. But realistically, Cooper Kupp, he's going to see a monster amount of targets. And if Stafford and that they can just win a couple games early, stay in it, I mean, Cooper Kupp could easily be the wide receiver 1. And I have no problem if you took him above Jefferson and Chase. I don't think that's like a crazy take. I mean, he's shown monster weekly outputs, and obviously, big weekly outputs when it comes to, just 30, 40-point games in some weeks. And him and Stafford have a great rapport, and Sean McVay loves getting him the ball. So to me, Cooper Kupp's a value, like you said, and I would have no issue taking him higher.
He normally goes off, and I can't remember if I gave a shout out to Fantasy Mojo, Darren Armani, the godfather of the FFPC Pros versus Joes, which is going off in about a month or so. Darren Armani, who handles all the FFPC ADP. Anytime I cite ADP data on this show, it's through him at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter, fantasymojo.com. Cooper Kupp on average of the 105. He goes at the 106 tonight. We could be looking at, Cooper Kupp. How do we let him fall to the middle of the first round when we look back on this, coming up in September, October, and November as we go through the season? But that is something to watch for going forward as well. Now, Bijan Robinson, let's talk about him for a second. I don't know if you noticed this, Terp. Well, Terp, you probably did. But like before the NFL draft, he was going right around that 1-2 turn. After the NFL draft, he kind of spiked up to the mid-first round. Then he was falling, and then again to the second round. Now you look at Bijan Robinson, you're looking at him at like the 108, right? And on average. And tonight he goes in our draft at the 109. So I'm looking at this as a weird kind of thing with a rookie running back. Are you surprised to see him spike so much in ADP?
Not really, because
where would you take him?
I personally would not take him in the first round. I love the player. Don't love Arthur Smith. Don't love Desmond Ridder. I feel like one out of those 3 guys that we always talk about, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, is going to be a monster. The question is which one, and that's the hard part. I don't think Arthur Smith can figure it out. He's going to run the ball a ton, but Tyler Algier is going to get carries. Cordarrelle Patterson's going to be around. Obviously, Kyle Pitts, who disappointed last year, hopefully everybody thinks he could take the next step. Drake London, had a very good season last year. But to me, Bijan Robinson is not a guy. I'm taking one of the receivers. I'm definitely taking Saquon Barkley, who literally has nobody behind him. Once he signs, which he's going to sign, Saquon Barkley is going to be the value in fantasy football right now, because once he signs, to me, he should pass Bijan Robinson.
And you're not concerned with like workload issues or anything like that with Barkley?
No, I mean, I don't really worry about that, because if they were worried about that, they would have added somebody to offset some of the carries and, the touches he got last year, and they did none of that. They have a bunch of dust buckets behind him and a rookie who was a late round pick. So I don't really worry about that at all. To me, Barkley is very, very safe with plenty of upside because he's still going to catch a ton of balls. He should be flip-flop with Bijan, in my opinion.
I want to talk about Mark Andrews here because I think this was a big surprise in the first round tonight. Mark Andrews goes off the board tonight in the first round at the 110 to team that was Robert Schogel who took him there. And I'm kind of curious as to what you think of him not going at the 207, but jumping all the way up to the 110. Does that sound like a reach to you there?
I don't personally think it's a reach. Last night I saw him in one of these go in the third round, which was shocking to me because that has to be the longest he's fell. What's not to like about Mark Andrews this year? New OC who loves tight ends. Lamar got paid, happy, plenty of receivers to take a lot of the pressure off Mark Andrews. At the end of the first round, I feel like you got to make a stand. If you think Mark Andrews is going to be a possible tight end number one, he's not coming back to you. So pushing him up a little bit more than what ADP says is not an issue to me. I mean, would I have taken him right there? Probably not. But I mean, I would have probably taken guys like CeeDee Lamb. We talked about Barkley. I would have took AJ Brown. But he would have been right there in the discussion with like Garrett Wilson or Mark Andrews if they were there at that spot. Or right at that spot. I would have thought about it in the second round to push him up even more. I don't think it's a bad pick. People are going to say it's early, but go get your guy. In this type of format, you're playing for $1 million. You're gonna be playing against a lot of teams at the end, and I can almost guarantee you, not many of them are going to have Mark Andrews and AJ Brown start.
Yeah, I think that's crucial here when you look at that. Is like you're trying to get unique builds to beat out thousands of other teams, and that Andrews Brown start.
Yeah, a random first round pick moving a guy up. Like for instance, if you moved AJ Brown up to like the third overall pick, is it a reach? Of course it is, but it gives you options that everybody's stacking Jalen Hurts with a guy like Dallas Goedert because they can't get Devonta Smith, they can't get AJ Brown, and Jalen Hurts is not falling to the third round. So you could push AJ Brown up, and is it a reach over guys like Hill, Kupp, McCaffrey, all that? Yes, but it gives you the Hurts option to make you different in a field that's going to be massive when you're playing for $1 million at the end.
That's a great point. And John Terry, again, a longtime FFPC player, a champion of multiple five-figure grand prizes for sure, probably six figures too, if I go back and look at it closely. He said that Andrews probably would have come back to team 10 in the second round of the 203 when he goes off the board at the 207. I guess the thing here, Terp, is yes, he probably would have been there at the 203, but this comes down to getting your guys. And if you really believe there's a non-zero chance that Andrews is not going to come back to you in the 203 and you love him, you got to take him at the 110. Not saying that's the right way to do it, but that's clearly the line of thinking here.
Yeah, nothing you're saying is wrong, but like, is there really a difference if you just flip those two picks and took AJ Brown 10 and Mark Andrews in that spot? Not really. I mean, it's not like he was way out of line with the second round pick. If anything, he got a value in AJ Brown a little bit. So to me, there's no downside at all to that. Again, could it blow up in his face? My guess is if I was him, I'd be figuring out a way to get Lamar Jackson, somewhere coming up. But I mean, it's a good start to me. It's a obviously with the FFPC format with the bonus for the tight ends, it makes a ton of sense because to me it's Kelsey, Andrews, and then there's a very sizable drop off.
Yeah, I think John Terry makes a good point here too. There may not be a whole lot of Andrews Brown teams in this competition. There could be some Brown.
He's probably right.
Teams. Yeah, there could be some Brown Andrews teams for sure. Let's get to 111 here. The last pick I want to get to before I take you through the second round, which just ended. Garrett Wilson normally goes up to 203. He gets pushed up a little bit tonight. He goes to team 11. That's Greg McLean, a very accomplished FFPC player. He takes Garrett Wilson at the 111. Terp, what are your feelings on Garrett Wilson this year going at that 1-2 turn now that he doesn't have to deal with Zach Wilson and he gets Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback?
Most people dislike the turn, the 11, 12 picks in most years, just for whatever reason, whether it's just guys that just aren't as sexy as the guys up top. I feel like this year's it's a great spot to be in. I mean, there's plenty of receivers you can take, whether it's St. Brown, if you're a Devontae Adams fan, AJ Brown, Barkley, any of those guys, Andrew, CeeDee Lamb, Wilson. I'm a big Wilson fan this year. He's a guy that I've been on, from the jump. as soon as I got whispers that Aaron Rodgers was going there, I just can see Devontae Adams, in my dreams. So he's a guy that I've been targeting a ton. He's a guy that if I was sitting right there, I have no worries about taking Garrett Wilson. I feel like he's a smash this year. He has wide receiver one potential if everything works out in New York with Aaron Rodgers. They have enough weapons there. Breece Hall's healthy. Big fan of Garrett Wilson. Love that pick.
If you are not familiar with the FFPC, the Fantasy Pros Championship format, it is a start, 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 tight end, 1 kicker, 1 defense, and 2 flexes. So you could start up to 4 running backs, start up to 4 receivers. You could start up to 3 tight ends. You only have to start 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and 1 tight end in this format. Let's go through the second round here. Sir. Nick Chubb goes to Team 12. That is Kenneth Ivanowski pairs Chubb with CeeDee Lamb. McLean takes Barkley in the second round to go with Garrett Wilson. We already talked about A.J. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown to the Jerk Store. That's Team 9. Robert Schogel there takes Amon-Ra St. Brown. Receiver is the start for Chad Weezer, going off with Diggs and Adams. Jonathan Taylor goes to Larson in the second round. Devontae Smith pairs with Cooper Kupp for Balazzo. Another team goes running back here. McCaffrey and Pollard for Team 5. That is Christopher Bowen. After that, you're looking at Jalen Waddle and then Josh Jacobs at the 210, Chris Olave at the 211, and TJ Hawkinson off the board as the third tight end tonight at the 212. Nothing really stands out to me here, Terp. I guess the thing I would bring up, and I think you want to talk about this probably, your thoughts on Tony. Well, no, before we get to Tony Pollard, your thoughts on a pair of your Eagle receivers going off in the same round tonight, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, only 4 picks apart. How do you view those two guys this year?
I mean, A.J. Brown to me is a first-round draft pick. If at the very worst he's on the turn. Devontae Smith is a guy that I'm like in the middle with. Is how much better can the Eagles' offense be? Mm-hmm. I know their schedule's tougher. I know that they're going to be in more close games, so that obviously helps things. They are the only 2 guys there with obviously Dallas Goedert, tight end. The running backs are going to be in play, obviously, but there's no third receiver. There's no fourth receiver. There's no worry from anybody else stealing targets from them. So Devontae Smith is a guy, like I'm looking in that range of guys. Like I would take Jalen Waddle over him. I would take Tony Pollard, obviously, over him. Jonathan Taylor, probably not, depending on the structure and who I started with. But Devontae Smith is a guy that I have no issues taking. It's not a bad pick. I just feel like his upside is very limited. And if you're going to take him, I don't know how you don't take Jalen Hurts in the second round. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about the Patrick Mahomes mistake probably pretty soon.
Yeah, we will. Before I get to that, let me talk about Jonathan Taylor, because that's another one that John Terry wants to know. What do you guys think of Taylor now going mid-round 2? Seems to have dropped a half round or so from earlier. And I did look at this on Fantasy Mojo. And this is a guy that was going mid-first, maybe late first, but he's right. I mean, Taylor has fallen. He went to that one back in early June. He was sort of like that 1-2 turn guy. And now he's sort of like a mid-second round pick. Terp, why is he falling? Is this a buy opportunity for those of anybody who's looking to get Jonathan Taylor shares? This is the latest we've seen him go so far in drafting season.
I think it's a buy. I mean, again, I'm not taking him over guys like Jalen Waddle or Tony Pollard, but I think he's going to fall even more. I think by the time, if you get any bad press from Anthony Richardson early on, he's going to fall. I would be surprised if he falls to like the beginning of the third round. People will just be scared of him because of the rookie not being ready. Gardner Minshew, like none of that really excites you. So I think Jonathan Taylor could be a value. Mm-hmm. Do I think he's a value right now? No. Do I think he could be a value? Yes. And if he is, again, you're talking about being different. If Jonathan Taylor somehow sneaks to the end of the second round and you could pair him with one of those guys, nobody else is going to have him for a while. So take advantage of that opportunity. It might not be the sexiest pick. He might not be your guy, but if he turns into the guy, which we've seen it happen time after time with guys who fall a little bit, during drafting season, it could turn out to be a $1 million decision.
Christopher Bowen starting off his draft with a pair of running backs, one of only 2 teams in tonight's draft that went running back. Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard. Terp, I know you're a Pollard fan. You got to love that start for Bowen here from the 5 slot.
You can't really ask for a better start. McCaffrey, Pollard easily could be running back 1 and running back 2 this year in either order. So nothing negative to say about that. I actually hope that Tony Pollard, so they add somebody. It's the only thing that worries me is I hope Dallas doesn't try to get too cute and give him a crazy workload and injuries happen.
Yeah.
So my guess, I want them to sign Zeke again, bring in somebody. I'd rather not bring in Fournette. Fournette's kind of annoying. He's probably the only guy out there I'd be annoyed if obviously we talk about fits for him, but don't want him to go there. Zeke, Hunt, none of them guys worry me. So I hope they bring somebody in just to get some touches away from him because he's going to be, I said running back one, and I stand by it.
TJ Hawkinson is paired with Justin Jefferson. These are two real life teammates here in Minnesota. Terp, if you were at the one spot here and you took Justin Jefferson, would you be doubling up on Vikings and grabbing Hawkinson there? Again, when you're trying to win an overall title and beat out thousands of other teams, I feel like you got to increase your variance. I don't know if Team One did that. That was Tim and Brad Cruz. I assume it's Tim Cruz drafting. I could be Brad, could be both of them. I don't know. But they go with two guys who are going to get a lot of targets. But again, they're on the same team. Should that affect decision making for FFPC drafters?
To me, I agree. I don't know if they differentiated themselves enough. I mean, to me, you have to get Kirk Cousins now. I mean, you're banking on Hawkinson, you're banking on Jefferson. That means Kirk Cousins has to be a top 5 quarterback this year. Mm-hmm. So drafting Hawkinson, I have no problem with, but then you're just buying into the Vikings offense and saying, hey, they're not going to run the ball at all. They're going to chuck the ball around the field. These two are going to be monsters. Forget Jordan Addison. Forget KJ Osborne. Defense is going to stink. Let's just get in shootouts. It's possible. It's different. But you're also pairing them with T. Higgins, who is a second fiddle on that. I mean, it's Jamar Chase's show.
Right.
And we've seen, T. Higgins have flashes, obviously big playability, but we also see him just totally disappear. He's not a guy I've been targeting a ton this year. I'm just not the biggest fan. I don't think he's an alpha. I mean, I think there's other guys he could have taken in that spot. Not a bad start. I'm not going to discount the start, but it's tough to just move all in on a Minnesota offense.
JT in the YouTube chat brings up the variance point. 1 year he came in top 5 in this competition with Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. So you don't always.
My guess is that year was the year that Jamar Chase exploded and won everybody all that money. Mm-hmm. So
I'm sure it was.
I'm not sitting here saying that's not possible, but you got to get the quarterback to go with it. You're not going to find many Mixon, Chase, Higgins teams without Burrow. Right. So if he drafts Kirk Cousins, no questions whatsoever. Kirk Cousins is his guy, fine. But if he doesn't, I mean, it just doesn't make long-term success.
Terp, John Terry said it was indeed the year that Chase blew up, for sure. Let's go through the third round here, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the quarterback round. Finally, the quarterbacks are off the board. Higgins to Tim Cruz, Ramondre Stevenson off the board to Steve Hawley. You're looking at Deebo Samuel going to Team 3. That's Zachary Watson, Jahmyr Gibbs to King State Kings from the 4 spot. DK Metcalf, first receiver drafted by Christopher Bowen. You're looking at Derrick Henry as the first running back drafted for Alex Palazzo. Then a bunch of quarterbacks here. Patrick Mahomes to Darren Larson. Josh Allen to Chad Weezer. And then you're looking at Jalen Hurts off the board to the jerk store. That's Thomas O'Brien at the 109. Travis Etienne is the first running back drafted by Robert Schogel. And then you're looking at Najee Harris and George Kittle to complete the third round. Harris to Team 11 and Greg McLean to pair with Saquon Barkley in that backfield. And then George Kittle, the starting tight end for Kenneth Ivanowski from the 12. Okay, so let's look at this, Terp. I think that Team 10 is probably super ticked off that Hurts didn't make one more pick to him where he could have paired Hurts and Brown together. What happens in a draft when you do something like that, when something like that happens to you, where you're locked onto the stack, it doesn't happen? Do you already have a backup player in mind just in case you do get sniped there? Because I feel like sniping happens pretty regularly.
His backup player was Lamar Jackson. I mean, that we talked about that early. Mm-hmm. Is there a possibility Lamar makes it back in the 5th? There's a possibility, especially if he can just survive these first 5 guys. So if he does that, then hey, that team is stacked. Mm-hmm. But obviously, you're sitting there, Hurts getting, falling all the way to the end of the 3rd. AJ Brown, when he took him in the 2nd round, he never thought Hurts was coming back to you. You get a little tickled by that. I mean, it's happened to everybody, every volume drafter, every guy who's drafted one. It just happened to me in Austin on one of these live feeds. That wasn't deliberate, so he says, but it's just it happens. So you got to be able to prepare for it. As much as it's annoying and as much as it might mess your draft up. In all honesty, I don't think it messed his draft up. He took 2 solid picks at ETN and Breece Hall in the 4th round. is an outstanding value.
Yeah.
And watching this, if he gets Lamar Jackson in the 5th, I don't need to see the rest of the draft. He's the best team.
So you were big on Travis Etienne in the 3rd round last year. Now he goes tonight at the 310. On average, Travis Etienne, according to Fantasy Mojo, running back 14 at the 404. So this was a little bit of a reach tonight. Again, I always say get your guys. If it's a reach, it's a reach. He gets Etienne there. Your thoughts on Travis Etienne? Where are you at on him this year, Terp, as compared to last year when you said, man, if you can get him in the 3rd round, you are going to have an awesome season?
Correct. And Etienne was great last year. But the problem with him this year is everybody's talking about Doug Peterson likes to use a bunch of guys. Ridley's in town. That's another guy's going to take, potential opportunities in the passing game away from him. Tank Bisbee, he doesn't scare me. Everybody talks about like how he's going to be the 3-down possible back. He's going to take carries away from Etienne. Etienne is an extremely talented player. He's Trevor Lawrence's boy. If Trevor Lawrence wants him in the game, guess who's going to be in the game? Travis Etienne. Yeah. I'm a big fan of that offense. I just saw they lost their left tackle today, so that's a little bit 4-game suspension.
Yep.
So he got popped today. That's definitely a massive worry for the team overall. First 4 weeks could get a little weird, but I have no issues taking Etienne. I mean, would I have taken him right there? I probably would have let him go a little bit, but I have no issues taking him to where he's getting drafted right now in the 4th round, especially if you're starting, Andrews, A.J. Brown, let's just say Keenan Allen or Jerry Jeudy, and then you took Travis Etienne as your number 1 back. Sign me up for that.
So, Terp, you teased this earlier in this segment, but Patrick Mahomes, you said it was a mistake for Larson to take him at
Twice.
The 307 tonight. Tell me your thoughts on that.
The logic is just it's really, really simple. If you're taking Travis Kelce, you're expecting Travis Kelce to do what Travis Kelce did last year.
Mm-hmm.
If not, why are you taking him in the 3rd pick? So for Travis Kelce to get to that potential, how's he getting the ball? Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
So in this format is a lot of teams. Certain situations you can't be different. If you have the opportunity, if you take Travis Kelce, you believe in Travis Kelce, and you feel like he's going to be the number 1 tight end, maybe the number 1 player, you can't pass on Patrick Mahomes twice, because if you make it to the end and Travis Kelce has a big week, you're dead. You're drawn dead. Yeah, of course you can figure it out with something somewhere else, and your quarterback's going to be. He hasn't drafted 1 through 5 rounds. Who's catching Patrick Mahomes outside of maybe the potential of 30 points a week right now? It's just a big mistake for me, because if you're trying to win everybody's playing this. Of course, you're trying to win your league, win the money there, go on a deep run. But if you're trying to win $1 million, you have to take Patrick Mahomes. You might not want to, but you just have to, because you're betting on that offense. And there's no better offense to bet on. If it fails, guess what? If Travis Kelce gets hurt, Patrick Mahomes is going to stink, and this team's going to stink. But if they do what they did last year, 75%. I just remember looking at Mojo when he posted that.
Oh, yeah.
It shocked me.
Mm-hmm.
Will that happen again? Probably not. But let's just hypothetically say it's 40%. You don't have Patrick Mahomes, you're drawing dead when it comes to $1 million.
Travis Kelce has moved up on ADP in this Fantasy Pros Championship to the 102. He falls to the 103 tonight, and I say falls in quotation marks because it wasn't really a fall. But at that point, when you have made your bed with Travis Kelce, you sort of have to sleep with Patrick Mahomes in it. Team 3 decided not to do that. We'll see what he does at quarterback here going forward. We did have another quarterback go off the board in the 4th round, plus 2 more in the 5th. That Seattle running back situation, there is a statement made by one team in the 4th round here coming up. Terp already talked to you about an AFC East running back that fell. We're going to discuss that as well. We'll step out and take a quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, when we come back on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, myself, Eric Balkman, and Dave Terpoilli going to take you through the 4th round of this live Fantasy Pros Championship, where all 12 of these drafters are drafting for $1 million this year with the FFPC. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What can we expect for you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse and You want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right, everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Your Heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your Heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscaster's Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Back! Come on! Let's go! Come on, dig it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire. Over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush. You were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no,
on the loose. Watch out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations, and no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!
The Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide is available with an all-sports subscription. It's now available, ladies and gentlemen. $26.99 for the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Get it free with a monthly or annual all-pro subscription to Fantasy Alarm. You can also start your free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm All-Pro and get immediate free access to the draft guide. Just go to fantasyalarm.com, fantasyalarm.com, fantasyalarm.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we are covering a Fantasy Pros Championship Draft live here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. It is myself, Eric Balkman, from the High Stakes Fantasy Football, or the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and the FFPC, and longtime FFPC player / multi-league champion in the high stakes space, Dave Terpoilli, chiming in tonight. We're covering the draft. We went through the first 3 rounds. Let's briefly go through the 4th round here, ladies and gentlemen. You're looking at Team 12 going with Keenan Allen to pair with the CeeDee Lamb. Jerry Jeudy, the second receiver drafted by Greg McLean. Breece Hall falling to the 403 tonight, followed by Calvin Ridley and Christian Watson, respectively, to Team 9 and Team 8. Aaron Jones was the third running back drafted by Darren Larson. Team 6, Alex Palazzo gets his quarterback in Joe Burrow, followed by his real-life teammate, Joe Mixon, the third running back drafted tonight by Team 5. That is Christopher Bowen. Kings stay Kings after that. Amari Cooper, the third receiver to his stable. Final running back of round 4 was Kenneth Walker to Team 3, Zachary Watson. And then DJ Moore to Kilmer's Coyotes. That's Steve Hawley. And then Drake London to Tim Cruz with the final pick of the 4th round. Terp, what happened to Breece Hall tonight? Was this just a stroke of luck for Team 10? That's Robert Schogel to get him at the 403. We normally see him go in the mid to late 3rd round. He gets him in the early 4th.
I think it's just a great value. I mean, you don't really see Breece Hall falling this far. I mean, people are obviously still worried about the injury. You know, is he going to come back 100%? People are worried about the whispers of Dalvin Cook. Are they going to, put the kid gloves on him early in the season? That could scare some people away. He's a guy that I've been probably in the middle with all year that I'm trying to really dig deep into and see if I'm missing something. He has league-winning upside.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, he's somebody that I need to add more. He's somebody that I wasn't, drafting much early. Definitely somebody that I need to start getting around to more because all you need is some positive camp news. He's out there running well, cutting, playing with the first team, all that good stuff. Aaron Rodgers loves him. He's going to be a second-round pick by the time September comes around.
Right around their ADP, where a pair of Green Bay Packers teammates, Christian Watson goes tonight at the 405. Aaron Jones goes at the 406. Terp, I know you're going to tell me, well, Balky, it depends on team construction, but I'm going to ask you, which Green Bay Packer playmaker do you would prefer there in the 4th round in a vacuum? Do you like Watson better as a mid-4th round pick or Aaron Jones?
I really, really like Aaron Jones this year, but this answer is easy. It's Christian Watson. To me, Christian Watson has top 5 upside this season. I mean, I'm a Jordan Love supporter. I saw some crazy Twitter takes this week about Jordan Love. They were a little nutty, but hey, I'm all about the positivity because most people hate Jordan Love. And if most guys hate somebody, they usually turn out pretty well. I'm very, very high on Jordan Love, so that would make me very, very high on Aaron Jones and Christian Watson. Christian Watson's a guy I've been drafting everywhere. Everybody knows this. He's a guy that I've been pretty much drafting anytime he's on the clock in the 4th round. I just feel like his upside's immense. But Aaron Jones, like you said, nothing wrong with that pick either. Definitely like him in a vacuum over A.J. Dillon. All things considered, obviously, where they're getting drafted. But both guys, I think the Green Bay offense is getting totally just, disgusted this year because Aaron Rodgers ain't there. Is Jordan Love any good? I think their offense is going to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. I could see that offense being Miami-esque this year. Big Jordan Love fan.
Listen, Terp, I love my Green Bay Packers. I am in the shadows of Lambeau Field here in Northeast Wisconsin. But man, top 5 upside for the Packers offense this year. The division's not great.
Either won by the Packers or the Bears.
I
That's
think
not a popular take because everybody loves the Lions, but I really do believe in Jordan Love.
And the Vikings won 12 or 13 games or whatever it was last year too. So yeah, I think the Packers and the Bears have the 2 worst odds to win the division. But I love it. I love hearing this tonight because I've been a Jordan Love believer. I think he's going to be good. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be as good as you think he is, but certainly if he is that good or better, man, you're going to get some deals on Packers in
correct. All the Packers, even the cheap Packers, Romeo.
Okay, so let's bring that up here too because John in the YouTube chat chimed in. What about the Love Dobbs bromance? And I'll tell you this: there has been a lot of chatter among Packers beat writers lately that Romeo Dobbs was he's going to be the go-to guy. Rob Domofsky from ESPN just said this. Matt Schneidman from The Athletic, who covers the Packers, said this like a month ago. He thought that Dobbs would lead the team in receptions this year. Receptions, not necessarily yardage, not necessarily touchdowns, but receptions. And I know that Dobbs and Love have been working out together. We know that Dobbs is really pumping up Love to the media, talking about, I don't see a difference between Rodgers and Love. And to his credit, he only saw Aaron Rodgers in 2023. He didn't catch balls from Aaron Rodgers, or in 2022. He didn't catch balls from Aaron Rodgers in any of his MVP years. So before you throw Dobbs under the bus, I think he has a point there. This is going to be interesting this year with this Dobbs-Watson thing. Maybe Dobbs could be the Godwin and I'm not comparing these guys to the talent level.
I understand your comparison.
Dobbs could be the Godwin in this offense, whereas Watson could be the Evans.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I mean, the bromance is definitely, seems to be real. Mm-hmm. You just have to watch this early in camp. You're not going to see many negative pieces.
Right.
So you got to really go through them and really think hey, these guys they have no pads on. They're not really practicing at all. I mean, here and there, but nothing of any major content. And these beat writers are just going to say, hey, these guys are great. These guys are the best of the connections, unstoppable. And if you really go through the years and look through all the years of we'll just say the last 5, all the guys who get hyped up in preseason, really hyped up, most of them aren't very good.
Yeah. And I could tell you this too, and this was training camp last year. But Romeo Doubs and Terp, you remember this. Romeo Doubs is getting a lot of hype in training camp.
Moved him up so much. I mean, he was getting stacked. Christian Watson was the afterthought.
Yeah.
Nobody talked about him. He was hurt. He was coming from a small school. He wasn't going to, Aaron Rodgers didn't have time for him. And Christian Watson was a league winner in some cases.
Right. Dominic Gazzetti, by the way, in the YouTube chat, said he's agreeing with you, Terp. It's tough to trust these off-season notes like this one,
especially guys who are like in the mid. Like if you're saying like Christian Watson's having a terrible off-season, like okay, maybe I got to look at that. But like all these guys who are secondary receivers who are they're not going to get many off-season bad pieces about them unless you're Chase Claypool.
Well, and Gazzetti brings up this Dominic Gazzetti. By the way, thanks for watching tonight, Dom. We're looking at what he's saying here. Watson has a higher draft capital. Like Dobbs was 100%. Like a day 3 pick, right? Whereas Watson, they traded up. He was 1 pick away from being a first rounder. People forget about that.
And you saw what he brought to the table last year. I mean, you saw what did Romeo Doubs? He was okay, but Christian Watson, you saw game-breaking ability. Yep. You saw him catch passes on a 5-year-old slant, a 5-yard slant, and take it to the house numerous times.
Let's go through and by the way, I should shout out Zachary Watson, who's actually watching this while he's drafting. He's in the free spot. Travis Kelce's like, I guess I should just let this thing auto draft right now with the crying.
You might want to.
Come on, it's not. No.
He knows I'm only kidding.
Listen, this is why you sign up for drafts like this.
I mean, you sign up for it. I'm not going to sit here and go, your team is very, very good. I really like it. That's just not my DNA.
I think what we'll do is we'll pick out spots from every team here going forward, and let's see if he can make some picks that you are fans of, or that you are a fan of, Terp. I want to go through the 5th round here, and again, we're just picking and choosing here. J.K. Dobbins at the 501 is the number 1 running back drafted by Tim Cruz. Team 4, King State Kings, they end up getting Lamar Jackson there at the 504. And Terp, I think if you look at that team right there, Jackson is not a stack with any of those players. Now, he could stack it with another Baltimore receiver later. We'll see what happens there, and maybe 2 Baltimore receivers.
He correlates to week 17, too, for all the correlation bros.
Okay. So correlation bros are in favor of Lamar Jackson
They're
at the 504 at that point, even though it's not a stack.
Even though it's not a stack, the correlation bros are excited because it'll be a different stack. Most people won't have that in the money round. So as much as I would still draft Tua somewhere, I don't hate it. It's different.
What do you make of Alex Palazzo at the 6th spot, grabbing Kyle Pitts as his number 1 tight end, the 6th tight end off the board overall? He gets him at 506. His ADP is normally 502, so he got a bit of a deal on him right there. Are you a Pitts guy this year?
I'm not really. We talked about this. If I had a bet on a Falcon, it would be Drake London. I mean, I love Kyle Pitts' talent. I love Bijan Robinson as a player. I just don't trust Arthur Smith. I mean, I just don't at all agree with how he coaches. Patterson's going to get touches. Algier's going to get touches. Are they going to get their playmakers the ball at all times like some of these successful NFL teams are going to be? I have my doubts. I would take Darren Waller over Kyle Pitts. Heads up. Season long for the points.
By the way, John Terry chiming in. There's way too much correlation talk in this contest. Don't take it up with me and Terp.
I agree.
Take it up with the correlation bros.
Correlation bros are
they're the ones driving the narrative.
In certain contests that are massive sizes,
right?
I don't disagree with it, but these contests are not as big as people make them out to be,
and they're spaced out. It's a 3-week run at the end of.
You got to get there. You said it perfectly.
Let's move on to the 6th round here. Terp. Let's talk about the 602 tonight. This is a guy that I think is getting steamed up lately in the Fantasy Pros Championship, just FFPC drafts in general, and that is the 2nd-year man, Rachaad White, the running back out of Tampa Bay. He goes at the 604. He's been going as high. In fact, in the Fantasy Pros competition in the last 3 days, he went as high as the 304, believe it or not. What do you make of Rachaad White here as Team 11, Greg McLean gets Rachaad White as his number 3 running back tonight?
A lot of people like Rachaad White. If you're starting 4 or 5 receivers, whatever, tight ends, quarterbacks, and he's your number 1 guy, I guess I'm okay with it, but I'm out on Rachaad White. Tom Brady's not there anymore, and Tom Brady was a check down king. Baker Mayfield is not Tom Brady. Kyle Trask is not Tom Brady. I don't see the same production catching the ball, and their offensive line's okay. It was banged up. It's a little older. I'm not a Rachaad White guy this year. I think there's better picks. I just don't see the upside. I don't think Baker Mayfield's checking the ball down 1,000 times like Tom Brady did. To me, 6th round, like I said, with the right structure, fine. If you're you're just trying to bet against yourself in certain situations, trying to pull a Josh Jacobs like last year. But to me, if he's not somebody I'll be drafting a lot of.
Terp, I want to go on. Is there any specific player that you want to talk about in the 6th round? Otherwise, I'm fine moving on to the 7th.
7th's good. Let's do it.
Let's go to the 7th round here. So you have a couple of guys at the 702 and the 703 tonight, drafted by Steve Hawley and Zachary Watson in Mike Williams and Mike Evans. I bring these players up because last year, both of those players went significantly higher in the mid-stakes contest. Williams is now he goes at the 602 on average. So good value on him here tonight. Mike Evans normally goes at the 704, so you're basically picking him at ADP tonight. Where do you fall in on players like that who have done it before, have had elite seasons before, but have really plunged in ADP this year due to, quite frankly, several factors on both of these squads in both Los Angeles and Tampa?
I see the Mike Evans fall. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, you've seen the training camp highlights of him just totally missing receivers. You're going to see a bunch of those. So I understand that fall. I like Mike Evans this year. I still think he's a very solid 7th round pick. The Mike Williams thing is tough because what's there not to love about that offense this year? Is he really 3 rounds worse than Keenan Allen? They're both obviously an injury risk, but the guys behind him are, Palmer and Quentin Johnson, the rookie. But Mike Williams in the 7th round just seems too good to pass up for me. I mean, he's not a guy I've been drafting a ton of, but like at certain points, like you're betting on that offense. And if he can stay healthy and, gel even more under the new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, Herbert and him could put up a monster season this year. I mean, health is still a question, but you've seen the big playability of Mike Williams. And again, I'm not saying Mike Williams is an outstanding fantasy pick this year, but in the 7th round, I'm taking Mike Williams over Mike Evans 100 times out of 100. And I'm not disliking Mike Evans. I think that's a very good pick at the spot. But 7th round, Mike Williams seems like a great pick to me.
I agree with you. And I think, like, even if you look at just this year's ADP, I think you can get on board with that as well. Moving forward in the 7th round, a couple other players I want to hit on here. Javonte Williams normally goes at the 712. Tonight, he goes off the board at the 705. Obviously, Christopher Bowen, who's drafting that team, knew that Javonte Williams was probably not coming back to him. What do you make of Javonte Williams joining that squad when he already had McCaffrey, Pollard, and Mixon? This could be a devastating team at running back. But outside of that, he's got to really fill in the cracks here. Was it too much? Was it overkill to take Williams there?
It's definitely overkill. I mean, Javonte Williams is the home run pick right now in fantasy drafts. He's not a pick that I'm making. We've talked about that before. I don't see that. I mean, when can he really help you? Early in the season, like, are you really confident he's going to be back? I'm not. I feel like it's going to take most of the season for him to get back and be healthy. Could he be a league winner if you have him stashed? Of course, but you're spending 7th, 8th round draft capital on him when you only have 2 receivers and one of them has, Colt McCoy throwing the ball. I don't know, man. Your receiving room, you should have added somebody there over Javonte Williams. I have no issues with any of the other picks, but I've been seeing a lot lately these running back craze where people are just moving, running backs and trying this 4 running back build. And it's not the worst thing in the world, but you got to do better than DK Metcalf and Marquise Brown as your receivers, because if you get any leaks in your running back room, this team's dead.
I Rich Billieu, who we just had on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour a few weeks ago, chiming in the chat. Mike Williams, last year he killed me. They call it recency bias. I call it familiarity breeds contempt, which is another way to look at it. And I always say, like, it's your team. Draft the guys, get your guys. Get the
recency bias is real. I mean, Cortland Sutton ruined me in a lot of spots last year. Mm-hmm. And it seems like everybody else is on board with just ignoring Cortland Sutton in every draft this year.
Yeah,
so I get it.
Seems that way.
But you got to be able to try to separate it a little bit and see that Kellen Moore in that offense, they're going to throw the ball even more than they throw the ball now. Justin Herbert's going to be healthy. He's going to have no issues that he did last year. To me, Mike Williams is just 7th round. Like, he was going in the 5th round early in drafts. Like, he would in some drafts he was going in the 4th. So to get him in the 7th round, it's got to be one of the best values in this draft.
I will say this too. We're getting Team 8 is getting a lot of love. That's Chad Weezer's team, or maybe I should call him Weiser.
Outstanding draft. Well,
yeah, I mean, and like everybody is chiming in the YouTube chat saying they really like it. You got Josh Allen at the quarterback position there, Cam Akers, James Conner, just added Devon A-Chain in the 9th round here at running back. The receivers we talked about, Diggs, Adams, and by the way, Diggs pairing with Josh Allen, Christian Watson, Chris Godwin, and then Evan Ingram, a guy that I think people are sleeping on this year, Terp. If you wait on tight end, yeah, Evan Ingram might be probably not catching a dozen touchdowns or even double-digit touchdowns for you. But as far as how ingratiated he was in that offense last year, I think people are shying away from him because of the Calvin Ridley factor. I think he's falling too far. I think it's okay not to like him as much as you did last year because Ridley is joining this team. I don't think he should just fall off the face of the earth. And it seems like he is really falling off. Tight end 9 tonight at the
I agree. I mean, if you miss out on one of those top tight ends to get a Freiermuth, Ingram, or Njoku, that's not a bad pick. I think all 3 of those guys have potential with top 5 upside. I mean, none of them, they're both, all 3 of them are in my opinion, the Browns will be way better this year. Kenny Pickett should take the next step, and Jaguars are one of the best offenses in the league. So if you miss out on one of those top guys and you're getting these guys in the 8th and 9th round in the tight end premium format, I'm surprised tight ends are not going higher this year. Everybody's like, you talk about recency bias. Everybody got screwed by tight end the position last year. If you didn't draft Travis Kelce, you were almost drawn dead in some drafts. But this year, you're getting a lot of values at tight end. People are saying running backs are falling. Tight ends are falling too. There's some really, really solid picks here from 7th round, and you can keep going down.
Is that what you're seeing too in your drafts of tight ends falling? Like, is this more in tune of what you're seeing in Fantasy Pros drafts this year?
Yes. I mean, I see tight ends falling, and I don't really understand why. Like, after Waller, I feel like it's just a drop off in people's mind, which it's definitely a tier break. So I agree with what they're thinking, but like, I'll use an example, like Team 10, who we've been talking very, very highly about, Zach Charbonneau. Like, a guy like that, like, yeah, he could help you down the road, but like, he has Mark Andrews, but if you put another tight end in there in that room, one of those guys we talked about, Ingram or Njoku, I think the team's just a little bit better. I mean, do I not like the Zach Charbonneau pick? Yeah, I mean, I think he's a solid player and he could be a league winner down the road, but either of those 2 guys in certain rooms in this draft so far, I would very much like probably a round or 2 earlier.
Terp, Kenneth Ivanowski took Gabe Davis almost a full round ahead of ADP. Normally goes at the 810. He goes at the 801 tonight. How have you been treating Gabe Davis in your leagues this year, given the presence obviously of Dalton Kincaid and Stephon Diggs still there? But Gabe Davis, I feel like people are really penalizing him. And quite frankly, now he looks like the type of player based on the stats he's accumulated the last couple of years. This looks like the spot in the draft where he can easily return on that value.
100%. He is a guy that at this spot, you could do so much worse. He's in one of the best offenses in the league. He's coming off a year when everybody loved him, pushed him up, and literally just, he was a second coming. He was going to be better than Diggs and all this yippity yap, and he turned into just a massive bust. I think he's a better best ball player personally. I know that's a slogan that people hate talking about, but he's going to have spike weeks. But on this team, he's going to be starting for this team. So as a 4th receiver, the upside he possesses, I mean, he's way better picked than, I mean, obviously Jameson Williams is going to be out for a couple games, but the guys who are going after him a little bit, I think he's a better pick than Jordan Addison. I mean, I think he's a better pick than Brandon Cooks. I think he's a better pick than Michael Thomas. I think he's a better pick than Elijah Moore. We can keep going on the list. I just feel like he's being ignored. Like you said, he's in a good spot where he still has the potential to do what everybody thought he did last year if things just work out. I mean, Diggs, who knows? Diggs could be Antonio Brown for all we know.
Yeah, there's a non-zero chance of it for sure. And he probably won't happen, but there's that possibility.
Probably won't happen, but you can see like Bill's starting off a little slow and Diggs not getting the ball, him just throwing a tantrum, and then what? Gabe Davis could be the number 1 receiver on an offense that's one of the best in football. So we'll see. Again, I think he's a better best ball player, but as a wide receiver 4, I'll take my shots.
Bill Hollywood, who, by the way, is watching tonight. He's got a couple of teams in the FFPC main event this year where you can win $1 million. He's going to be going for that. He's trying to get Rich Bilyeu to be his co-manager this year. Obviously, watching Rich Bilyeu's interview with us a couple of weeks ago, and he's very excited to try to co-manage the team with him. Will that happen? I don't know. We're trying to bring people together on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Dominic Guzzetti has a question for us, Terp, and this pertains to Darren Waller, who went off the board to Darren Larson tonight at the 507. You guys think Waller comes with more risk than normal, given his injury history and all the receiving weapons the Giants have? I could see the Giants using Waller a good amount as a blocker. And I would say this. Number one, I don't think the Giants gave up what they gave up to get Waller into New York to make him a blocker. Number two, I think that there are a lot of receiving weapons in New York this year. I don't know if any of them are going to be any good in 2023. I am pretty sure that Darren Waller is going to be pretty good in 2023. Now, he had, in injury history. And I know he's been dinged up and he's not the youngest guy in the world. But you also have to look at draft capital here. Now, tonight he goes at the 507. He's the 7th tight end off the board to a team that still didn't draft the tight end. You're looking at a guy who has top 3 upside in as far as tight end finishes this year. I'm totally on board with that. I said last week, I can't remember if it was this show or one of the other ones, I said, I'll probably have a lot of Waller on my teams this year because I like where he's going at this point, and I like his upside, Terp.
We talked about it earlier versus Kyle Pitts. I would take Darren Waller versus Kyle Pitts, and anybody that wants to place a friendly wager on that, I'd be happy to do that. Darren Waller is a guy that I think has top 3 upside. He's definitely a guy that I'm very, very high on. I trust the coach. I trust Brian Dable. I feel like he is going to unlock what we saw a couple of years ago with Waller and really turn him into, an elite tight end that he was. Mm-hmm. Injuries, obviously a risk, but every year you got to go into the same thing. Injuries are always going to be a risk. You can't not draft a guy because he's going to get injured, because the upside is just, like you said, the Giants receivers. I think they have some talent. Will they figure it out? How long will it take them to figure it out? There's so many questions there that I feel like Daniel Jones, they have Saquon Barkley as he is a top target, but Darren Waller to me is a clear 2 and should get peppered with targets early and often. I mean, how it works out is up for grabs, but I feel like Darren Waller is a very, very, very good fantasy pick. I've drafted him on 2 of the streams so far. That's how much I like him.
Hey, that's true. You have. That's right. I forgot about that. Alex Balazzo takes Damian Harris about a full round ahead of ADP tonight. He gets him as his number 3 running back. Obviously wanted to make sure that he got a top 36 rusher there, which he did, and Damian Harris to go with Derrick Henry and Miles Sanders. I don't know if that was more of like a team need, but Terp, your thoughts on Damian Harris sharing the backfield with James Cook and others in Buffalo this year?
I'm not really the biggest Damian Harris guy. I'm more of a James Cook guy. I look at the overall structure of that team, and I'm just like, Derrick Henry is obviously your anchor at running back. Miles Sanders is not a guy that I'm really excited about this year. I know, people think, he got paid. Carolina's going to give him the ball a ton and all this, good stuff. But I'm just not on board there. He doesn't catch passes. It's like the same thing. Like you saw blurbs on Nick Chubb catching passes. He's going to catch more passes this year. He's never done it in his career. So what makes you think he's going to do it more this year? Nick Chubb's a different animal because he's probably the best pound for pound, rusher in the league. Miles Sanders is not that guy. So structure of this team, Damian Harris, what's the best you're going to get from Damian Harris? Is Josh Allen really going to stop running the ball on the goal line? Yeah. I feel like Cook gives you more ability in the passing game. Damian Harris, what's your best case scenario? 12 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Maybe he mixes in a 100-yard game here and there. I don't see it. He's not a guy I've been adding a ton. I know that's in some eyes not a popular opinion, but it's Cook over Harris for me.
And I mean, that's what the ADP is lining up, right? I mean, it has been Cook over Harris there too. So the other thing I want to bring up here, what do you make of Thomas O'Brien's Jerk Store team from the 9 spot tonight? Does not take a tight end until 12 of them are off the board. Does not take a tight end until the 9:09 tonight. And then he goes back-to-back tight ends with Greg Dulcich and Dalton Kincaid. I've read some cons. I've heard some cons from a lot of these, from both of these players so far, Terp. But I also think there are a lot of pros here that make both of them good. And to get them back-to-back, again, when you're trying to win $1 million, if either one of those guys hit or if both of them hit, my God, all of a sudden you're looking at an excellent team here from Team 9.
Team 9 did a very good draft, like you said, very good draft, draft from top to bottom. I don't mind waiting on tight end. The only thing you have to gamble on waiting on a tight end in a managed format is who do you start? Are you always going to pick the right one? Yeah. It's a really tough spot because each one of these guys have a lot of hype coming into the off season. Everybody's saying both of them are going to break out. They're both young tight ends, good offenses. If Russell Wilson, figures life out again, and the rest of that team is stacked from top to bottom. So the only problem with redraft leagues is like if you miss out like on a tier of Freiermuth, Evan Ingram, and Njoku, you're looking at a bunch of guys who, to me, you draft one and you just go with it. You draft another like upside guy later, like a Trey McBride or like a Jelani Woods or like somebody like that, because you're going to start one of these guys day one, but you're not starting both of them, so you're probably going to pick the wrong one a lot, and you're going to get real frustrated with it. I think to me, it's a best ball pick when you do back-to-back tight ends. I love both players, like them both, but when you have to pick one every week or maybe pick two, over one of the receivers, which you probably won't do, but if you do, it could be a tricky predicament.
These are conversations I've had with high-stakes players for years. People who are excellent with blind bidding and waivers, people who are excellent at drafting, everything like that. But the one thing I don't think anybody's really gotten a good handle on is lineup setting in a 20-man league.
Very, very difficult.
It's tough. It's really, really tough to do. And when you're talking about, these 12 guys, they're playing for $1 million. Like they're trying to win the
people always say like wait on a quarterback. Well, okay, you wait on a quarterback and you draft like a Daniel Jones and Geno Smith. Looks great. Who you starting?
Yeah. And I think that's a great point to bring up. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just over the halfway point of tonight's Fantasy Pros Championship coverage here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. We're going to get to much more in hour number 2. Dave Terpoilli, an FFPC league champion. Myself, Eric Balkman from the HSFF Hour, the FFPC. We're guiding you through this draft all the way through. We're going to get into round 10 coming up after the break. A couple of Ravens receivers went off the board in this round. Who got the better one? We also saw a couple of high upside bears in this round. We'll talk about them, and including a couple of other guys that we have not talked about yet tonight, and the one that we did touch on a little bit. They now have homes on this team. Who got the best scores of round 10? We're going to tell you about that and much more. Take you all the way through the rest of this draft right here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, only on the Better Sports Network.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty Fantasy Football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format of fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you got to have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Welcome back to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, ladies and gentlemen. 4 minutes past the top of the hour here on the Better Sports Network. I am Eric Balkman from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Being joined tonight by longtime FFPC drafting and team management veteran. He's a player. He's an FFPC player who has won multiple leagues at the highest stakes level here with the FFPC. Dave Terpoilli. You follow him on Twitter at Dave Terp. A guy who I want to pick your brain here as we're covering this Fantasy Pros Championship draft. Right now, all 12 of these drafters are in the running for a $1 million grand prize. They not only have to make it out of this league into the championship round, but then they have to beat out everybody in that 3-week sprint at the end of the year. So this is very compelling stuff, and I think we're seeing some different drafting strategies being utilized tonight based on the fact that these teams aren't trying to beat 11 teams. They're trying to beat 11,000 plus teams or whatever it is this year. I want to talk about the 10th round here, Terp. And there is a conversation going around. Let's step back a little bit because the YouTube chat's blowing up right now about this Njoku versus Schultz conversation at tight end. Now, David Njoku goes off the board at the 808 tonight to Christopher Bowen. Dalton Schultz goes to King State Kings at the 904 tonight. Where do you stand on Njoku versus Schultz? Which one are you going to have more shares of this year?
To me, it's Njoku. I feel like he's just much better of a player. I mean, I don't feel like Dalton Schultz is in a bad spot. I mean, I think C.J. Stroud will be the best rookie quarterback not named Anthony Richardson this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty substantial. So to me, Njoku in that offense, who I feel like is going to take the next step. They have some receivers in the room. There's possibilities of DeAndre Hopkins coming to town, but to me, it's Njoku, and I think it's a pretty good margin. I like the Texans receivers better than I like Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, Rich is chiming in the chat and bringing up a lot of good stuff here. Schultz is on a new team. He has a new quarterback. He has a new coach, new offense, new offensive coordinator, and he talks about how much he loves the block, and he's a good blocker too. And if that's the case, and Houston runs the ball, all of a sudden you're looking at a Dalton Schultz player that is effectively neutered in the passing game, much more so than he was last year, whereas we are very sure of what David Njoku's role is going to be in this offense, given that they have Deshaun Watson, a full offseason, a normal preseason. This year he's not coming in 2/3 of the way through. They paid Njoku. They obviously want him to do well. He goes a little bit before Dalton Schultz tonight here in the 8th round, but that is where Terp stands on that. Getting to the 10th round, Terp, Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman both go in this round. Bateman 2 picks ahead of Flowers. This was a situation where I think Bateman was going significantly higher than Flowers maybe 3-4 weeks ago. That is not the case anymore. Where do you stand on Bateman versus Flowers? Do you like Flowers now better than Bateman?
I like them both. I will draft them both, but right now it's Flowers for me. It was Bateman, but getting cortisone shots in his foot. I mean, I don't know. It was a bad injury. It's not. It's definitely an injury that you have to worry about. It's definitely a possible re-aggravation. I don't know. Flowers just flashes to me. He's a guy I really love coming out of the draft. I mean, Lamar Jackson is going to pass the ball a ton this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like Flowers could be the guy to take it to the next level. I mean, all Ravens receivers to me are valuable. Mark Andrews obviously being the best one, but then even Odell Beckham at the dusty Odell Beckham coming off all the injuries in the world. I don't know. I just think that the Ravens offense right now is just stacked, and all these guys have value, but to me, it's Flowers over Bateman.
Odell Beckham, not a young man anymore either. So you could put that in the camp of Flowers and Bateman over Beckham.
He got paid though.
He did get paid a lot of guaranteed money.
Get the money that he got, people probably wouldn't even be talking about Odell Beckham. They'd still, just because he's a popular name, but he got a big contract. So my guess is he gets enough targets to warrant, fantasy consideration. In 13th round, I think he went in this, or 12th round in this draft. I don't mind him there because the Ravens could easily have the best offense in football this year.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of Team 7 here? This is Darren Larson, one half of the 2021 KFFSC main event champions. Obviously pounded the running backs early in Eckler, Taylor, Jones, and Montgomery. Gets Waller, gets Mahomes. So pretty much all his positions are set except for receiver, and he's been pounding them here. Hopkins, Smith and Jigba, Jamison Williams, Cortland Sutton, Jacoby Myers, Jonathan Mingo. Terp, you brought this up earlier. This is not a bad strategy in best ball. Is this strategy going to work out in a managed format like the Fantasy Pros Championship?
I don't see it personally. Obviously, the top 4 or 5 picks are very, very good. It looks like a couple of leagues might have been autoed.
Right.
But no issues with the top 5 picks, but who you starting a receiver? You got to start 2. So DeAndre Hopkins, if he goes to Tennessee or if he goes to New England, yeah, you're starting him obviously, but are you starting with any confidence? JSN, love the player, but he's the third receiving option on the Seattle team. We don't even know if Pete Carroll's going to use 3 receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Jameson Williams out 6 games. Courtland Sutton.
That's the player I want to talk with you about, because Jameson Williams, again, with this team construction here, where you're looking for upside, is there something to be said for Williams?
Get to like being in the dance, being around. By the time Jameson Williams back, this team could look totally different. With DeAndre Hopkins, with Jameson Williams, if Jonathan Mingo takes the next step with with Bryce Young is a possibility. I think Jacoby Myers is a solid fantasy pick this year. I think a lot of the attention will be on Devontae Adams, so I feel like he's definitely somebody to watch. And an 11th round draft pick, he's not going to hurt you. But Courtland Sutton just doesn't fit the team build here. I would much prefer a Marvin Mims a couple of rounds later. And I just feel like on a team like this, you should be drafting more upside receivers, because Courtland Sutton it was tough to watch last year.
Team 1, that's Tim Cruz. Let's get back to his squad.
I was hoping we got back here, because we definitely have a comment on what we talked about earlier.
Well, okay, give us the comment here, because he's got 6 receivers through 11 rounds. He's only got 3 running backs. He just drafted his backup tight end here, and he's already got 2 quarterbacks on his team. And you made the comment earlier, hey, if he gets Cousins, all of a sudden this team's looking good, because he took Jefferson and Hockenson. He got Cousins in the 12th turn.
Love the Cousins pick, but you got to bet on the offense. This is a type of build, in my opinion, that if you're going to start Jefferson, Hockenson, Kirk Cousins should be your quarterback 1. Mm-hmm. You're betting on them 2. You got to bet on Cousins. Are you going to start Deshaun Watson every week? Because if you are, then you're kind of betting against yourself. Yeah, I know Jefferson and Hockenson could still put up numbers, but Cousins, to me, should be your quarterback 1, and you should have taken another receiver or running back, at that pick, because Deshaun Watson unstacked. Or no, he's not stacked because you have Elijah Moore after, but it's just he made it work. I'm not going to sit here and say it's like a terrible pick. Elijah Moore is obviously going to be a key part to his team. But, man, if you're betting on those 2 guys to start off your team, to me, Kirk Cousins has to be your QB1.
Yeah.
And you can get him in the 12th round so you can stack the rest of your team with whatever you want.
And there's quarterbacks to be gotten late, but I think you're right. I mean, like, you look at Tim Cruz's team here, J.K. Dobbins, Samaje Perine, Jamal Williams. He could have taken Javonte Williams and locked up.
And he could have taken Kirk Cousins and then followed up with Anthony Richardson.
Could have done that as well.
And then you wait on Richardson to figure it out, and then you have 2 late, middle round guys who you didn't really spend much draft capital in, or they're just as, they have top 5 upside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just and that's the thing, that, and maybe he'll be kicking himself when he's like, oh man, I wish I could play Cousins this week, but Watson's upside, when he could have had Javonte Williams, he could have had James Conner, who I like this year in the 7th round, Isaiah Pacheco, the guy who's probably going to be leading the Chiefs in rushing again this year, James Cook, he could have had Alvin Kamara. There were some other
running on the list.
I mean, like, there's a lot of names that he could have taken.
A ton of receivers, too, that he let by.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason I would have said running back there is he already had 4 receivers on his team. To me, the running back helps you out a little bit more in the 7th. But you're right. I mean, he could have loaded up on and just really gone for the kill shot with receivers.
You look at drafting Michael Pittman where he drafted him. If he would have just let Watson go, you're talking about Cousins and then pairing Richardson with Pittman.
Mm-hmm.
It made a lot of sense. I mean, again, he made it work with Elijah Moore because, like I said, I'm big on stacking no matter the format. But when are you using Kirk Cousins on this team?
Right. Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's a fair point. Team 4 is I don't want to say ignoring the running back position, but Kings Stay Kings gets Jahmyr Gibbs in the 3rd, DeAndre Swift in the 6th. Now they're starting to pound running backs a little bit more. Elijah Mitchell and Jerome Ford back-to-back in the 11th and 12th round. He gets the new Houston Texan and Devin Singletary in the 14th. What do you make of the running back approach? And bear in mind that this is a team that did not take a tight end until round 9 as well.
I don't mind what they did. I mean, they probably pushed tight end a little bit too much. But at running back, Jahmyr Gibbs is a popular name. Obviously Lions, believe in him. They love him. They really feel like he's going to be a big part of that offense. I mean, no DeAndre Swift anymore in with the Lions, but it's hard to trust Dan Campbell. I mean, you saw last year, as much as I love Jahmyr Gibbs as a player, I mean, you saw what they did last year with Jamal Williams, just tortured DeAndre Swift owners.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're mixing in all those other guys too that, just are annoying to watch. So do I feel like Jahmyr Gibbs has plenty of upside? Of course. Is your number one running back? Hey, in certain builds, why not? But you got to worry about Dan Campbell a little bit. Is he going to really use him, as much as some people think? Like, I know a lot of guys who are extremely, extremely high on Gibbs. I am too, but just a little bit of tempered expectations when it comes to him overall. But DeAndre Swift, I feel like, is going to be a very, 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 very good player in the Eagles offense. I feel like he's going to be the lead back and take that really, really quickly. I like Gainwell, but I feel like Swift is clearly the best player. Upside with Elijah Mitchell, obviously, if McCaffrey gets hurt. Upside with Jerome Ford, who's a popular June darling in fantasy football drafts because they haven't added anybody yet. Devin Singletary is another good name. Dameon Pierce has questions. I mean, he had a very good season last year, but he still has questions. And Devin Singletary is going to get plenty of work. So I don't mind the running back room. I think it's actually pretty solid.
What about I want to get over to Alex Palazzo's team again here in the 12th round. After already having 4 receivers, he doesn't go to the position again until the 12th round. He gets Adam Thielen, who is ostensibly the number 1 wide receiver in Carolina. You think FFPC drafters are letting Thielen slip too far, given the amount of targets he should be seeing from Bryce Young this year?
But are you sure he's going to see the targets? He didn't see the targets last year from Kirk Cousins when they literally threw the ball around the whole field. I mean, he had some flashes, but he's been dusty since that the 1 year when he kind of just broke onto the map.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of Adam Thielen. He presents no upside to me. I would much rather have Chark, much rather have Mingo. I feel like Bryce Young will figure out those guys, and get those guys the ball more, because Adam Thielen as a number 1 receiver just doesn't sound right. I mean,
right.
Yeah, could they game plan and get him the ball? Of course, but is he capable of doing that? I don't think so. To me, there's better upside players, especially this late. I mean, and better offenses that you could have taken. So
Rich Billieu in the chat room right now is chiming in, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Terp. The Patriots.
Mind blown. Just
okay.
Mind
So
blown.
yeah, the Patriots signed, and I'm trying to find the the actual contract numbers.
I think it was 3 years, 38 million.
Okay, so 3 years, 38 million. Okay, perfect. So not that we care necessarily about Devontae Parker, but as Rich brings up, it just kills Juju Smith-Schuster's value, who went to Robert Chogel at the 11-10 tonight. What do we make of this for fantasy purposes when we have to try to draft the guy who's going to give us the best fantasy goodness, the best fantasy bang for our buck among New England receivers this year? Is it still Smith-Schuster, or do we have to back off that and maybe say, okay, I'm out on Patriots receivers after what I saw New England do with Devontae Parker?
It's still Tyquan Thornton for me. I feel like he's still the guy that I will draft, but it's definitely a worry. I don't own Juju. I will never own Juju in any big spots. I just don't. He's not my guy. I mean, I didn't like him last year with Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to like him with Mac Jones. He's obviously has knee issues. I mean, is there a world where he's a value in fantasy drafts? Maybe. I don't think it's the worst, thought process if you're trying to talk yourself into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't trust Bill Belichick. They just gave Devontae Parker money when DeAndre Hopkins was out there, who would have been number 1 receiver right up the jump for you. It makes your offense relevant. But no, they just do. Bill Belichick's definitely losing his mind, in my opinion, with Devontae Parker, who wasn't very good last year, and he got paid. I don't get it. It's definitely one that I was mind blown when I saw. So,
and he gets hurt too. I mean,
and he really. When's the last time he's flashed like a good fantasy season? It's been a while. Miami days. I mean, it definitely has been since then.
I don't want to speak ill will of him because he is a University of Louisville guy, and my guy Farrell Elliott is probably watching tonight. So I don't want to speak ill will of any Louisville Cardinals on the program today. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, Terp, on Devontae Parker. And not to say that he's being drafted significantly. He's not. it is still.
That's the craziest part. Let's just look at fantasy football drafts. The guy's not getting drafted.
Right.
So let's give him an extension. That don't mind blown by that.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense here. Let's move on into the 13th round here, Terp, as we are looking at. I believe Ty Chandler got some love from somebody in the YouTube chat. I don't remember who it was. My apologies to you, but Alex Palazzo gets him here with as his 5th running back 53. This is a situation where Dalvin Cook is probably moving on. I mean, I don't see him re-signing in Minnesota after they released him. So you're looking at the Alexander Madison show. You still have they drafted Dwayne McBride, but I remember a lot of people on the Ty Chandler bandwagon last year, and I probably will be like in my drafts where I'm looking for the one injury away or the guy behind the guy in my drafts. I'm going to get Ty Chandler on a few of my teams this year. Is he the right choice over McBride, do you think?
Extremely high on him. North Carolina kid, ton of speed. I'm not Alexander Madison. Obviously, he's shown in short doses he could be the guy, but I feel like Ty Chandler is a guy that is a perfect pick.
Mm-hmm.
This late in drafts. I mean, he gives exactly the profile that you're looking for. He has game-breaking ability. He just hasn't figured it out yet at the NFL level. McBride's still there, but he's also, we talk about draft capital. He's not a guy that, owns a ton of that. Obviously, he's a rookie, so there's plenty of mistakes to be made. I feel like Ty Chandler is one of the best handcuffs right now that's going at a price where he's affordable and he just makes sense for so many builds.
Terp, what am I missing at? Because this is a guy I have not looked at. I have not targeted at all. And it was a guy that Christopher Bowen took in the 13th round tonight, 1305, Rashid Shaheed, 62nd receiver off the board. I know they have Derek Carr there now, but and I can understand why Juwan Johnson's getting steamed up. Obviously, there's a ton of Chris Olave love. He goes in the 2nd round.
Don't forget Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill, obviously, there. Michael Thomas. I've talked with my fair share of plenty of Michael Thomas drafters this year who say that his value is really good. Shaheed's an interesting guy because, I guess I can get on board with him in best ball, but I was never really I don't really want to manage a team where I'm contemplating, okay, do I play Shaheed this week or sit him? You know what I mean? He's not the type of guy that strikes fear into my opponent's hearts. What am I missing on Rashid Shaheed this year?
Nothing. He's not a guy that I drafted pretty much anywhere either.
Okay.
I mean, best ball, you can mix him into, a couple spots just because he does have big playability. You saw that last year. But let's just look at the round he's in. To me, my profile when I'm drafting, these guys late is who could be a number 1 receiver or close to it. Shaheed can never be a number 1 receiver. There's never a world where he gets to the number 1 receiver. Obviously, injury, but Zay Jones, I see a path that he could be the number 1 receiver. It's probably unlikely, but the path is there. You saw him have monster games last year. Jonathan Mingo, path is there. Tyler Boyd, one of the best offenses in thing. Is he going to get past Chase? But I could see him getting past Higgins in some cases.
Yeah.
I don't see there being any world where Shaheed is ever a guy in a managed league where you have to put a lineup in every week that wouldn't just be, hey, I want to pick him in a bye week and throw him in there and hope. You're never going to say, I'm starting this guy with confidence.
Right. I want to bring up another guy who I think I was excited about in the pre-draft process, and that's Israel Abanikanda in New York. I know, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and reading what a lot of beat writers are saying. And again, Terp, I think you pointed this out. We have to be aware of the puff piece this time of year. But you're looking at Abanikanda as a guy. He could beat out Michael Carter. He could beat out Bam Knight, and he could be the guy behind the guy at Breece Hall. And oh, by the way, Breece Hall coming off an ACL tear, so maybe Abanikanda has a role in this offense from the get-go. Wow, what do you do with Abanikanda in the drafts right now? Because he goes at the 13-10 tonight. Terp, I'd be comfortable taking him a couple of rounds ahead of that.
I don't mind it. There's a lot of questions surrounding Breece Hall, especially early in the season. I don't think they're going to give him, he's not going to be a 20-carry guy early in the season. So, like you said, Michael Carter, they clearly don't like him. They keep adding guys. Bam Knight, he had some flashes, but is he really any good? I could see him easily being cut this year and just forgot about. So I was a big fan of him coming out of Pitt. I think he has a very, 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 very strong ability. The question is, rookie running back, Aaron Rodgers, does he care about even entertaining that, or is he going to go with a guy who's a veteran who might not be as good, but isn't going to get him killed? You got to worry about rookie running backs is, can they pass block?
Yeah.
Can he pass block? Aaron Rodgers ain't putting you out on the field. He didn't come to New York to get hit 24/7. So if these guys can't pass block, they're not playing. So that's something you got to look at with these rookie running backs. He's a guy that I'll add, as we get closer to, September in drafts that I do. Will I overdo it? Probably not. But I love his ability. I mean, I just wish he fell into a better spot in draft personally.
I want to get into Robert Schogel's team here from the 10 spot, as we just talked about him taking Abanikanda. Now, he did get Breece Hall in the 4th round. He gets Abanikanda in the 13th. Given that he got the value on Hall, are you a fan of getting Abanikanda in the 13th round, or is that somebody?
Yeah, I don't mind. I'm not a handcuff guy. I usually take other guys' handcuffs, but I don't mind it. It's not like a terrible strategy. I really think that, with this format, but it's the same thing. Like when you're taking handcuffs, it's like you're kind of betting on one of your guys to get hurt. So like you're taking him. So like you want Breece Hall to get hurt. There's never a world where they're both going to be fantasy, performers. So like it's kind of a wasted pick for me. I'd rather hope that somebody else gets hurt or hope somebody else misses a couple games and I get to use them. A Ty Chandler, a Zamir White, Devin Singletary, Pierre Strong, possibly Gus Edwards, guys like that like, hey, I'm betting against J.K. Dobbins for a couple of weeks to miss some time. I have his backup. I'm going to take advantage of it instead of going, hey, the only way this guy's going to be relevant if Breece Hall gets hurt or Breece Hall sucks, and then you just wasted a 4th round pick.
Yeah, but at that point, like if that's the case, I'd be willing to say, okay, if I wasted a 4th round pick, I don't know if a 13th round pick is going to save me here. And then
but it's also no guarantee that the 3rd or 13th round pick is the guy. So right. like you said, Michael Carter, Bam Knight, like somebody we don't even know of, could easily be the guy, and now you have 2 picks that are dust. So I mean, in managed leagues, it's a lot more difficult.
Not only did Robert Schogel back up Breece Hall with Abanikanda, but he took Mark Andrews in the 1st round, Terp, and then he gets Isaiah Likely in the 14th. Now, to me, this is a different type of quote-unquote handcuffing. We think about handcuffs as running backs. We don't often see it with tight ends. We do see it from time to time, but this is interesting. If you had that kind of capital invested into Andrews, would you be looking at adding Likely in the middle or late rounds?
The answer is still no. I mean, it's you're betting on Mark Andrews. If you're taking him 8th, what was it, 9th overall, 10th overall?
10th overall.
You're betting that he is tight end 1, tight end 1A, 1B, whatever you want to say. I mean, Likely he flashed last year. He definitely showed a lot of potential. He's a guy that is a perfect best ball target, as a 17th, 18th round draft pick, in my opinion. Obviously, if Mark Andrews gets hurt, has top 5 ability tight end. But I mean, you're taking too many handcuffs. You're kind of like putting yourself in like a little bit of a take another player with upside. Take another guy that I really feel like we talk about this team starting off the draft and how good they were. Kind of feel like they faded off a little bit. I mean, the Tua pick. I do not know how you draft Tua without Waddle or Hill. Obviously, one team has both of them, but like, what is your best case scenario? Like to me, you got to maximize it. Tua is one of the best values in fantasy football right now. If you don't have one of those 2 guys, I mean, it's kind of like you're going to be behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and it was good. And Rich Bilyeu chiming in the chat that was surprised that Daniel Jones went where he did tonight at the 1603. Rich also has a question for you, Terp. And I can attest to this. Aaron Rodgers quarterbacked one of the slowest offenses in the league in terms of pace of play last year in Green Bay. Rich wants to know, do you think he's going to bring that to the Jets? And actually, the Jets' pace of play slows way down, and maybe they don't get off as many plays as they did last year. Of course, they'll probably get off more just by happenstance because it won't be Zach Wilson at quarterback. It'll be Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, I love Garrett Wilson. We talked about that earlier in the show, but my worry is, like you said, pace of play. Aaron Rodgers is not the quickest guy in the world. He's not a guy that's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. And
he analyzes everything, right?
Fantasy football, you want more plays the better. You don't care if they're bad plays. Just give me as many plays as possible. Give me as many opportunities as my guy to score touchdowns, catch passes, whatever. So that worries me. And obviously just the worry of just like the Jets are going to be a dumpster fire. So, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that I feel like comes with a chip on his shoulder. I feel like he has something to prove. He would have just retired if he didn't care, which I'm actually surprised he didn't do. But going to New York, going to the big lights of New York, I see him going out there and making a statement. I could see them winning the division. I'm on the Jets this year. I really feel like the Jets will be better than some people think. A lot of people are picking them third in the division. The defense is the best in the division. If that offense can figure it out and Wilson and Rodgers can figure it out and Breece Hall's healthy, I mean, who's better than the Jets on paper?
Yeah. Yeah, they're very, very
division-wise. I'm not talking about Bengals, Chiefs type of, categories yet, but
well, I mean, they're better than New England.
They're better than New England.
They're on the Miami Buffalo plateau, like there.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, with Aaron Rodgers, it elevates you to the next level. I mean, he hasn't been great lately, but if him and Garrett Wilson figure it out, they get Hardman to wake up, Lazard to actually be a solid NFL receiver. It is, the potential's there for the Jets to make noise. I mean, the AFC is ridiculously stacked.
Yeah.
But the potential's there, and it's the pace of play does worry me, but you would think, they would speed up a little bit, but we'll see.
Well, and Rich also chimes in, Green Bay's pace of play is probably going to pick up, right? Because Love is not going to have the freedom that Aaron Rodgers had at the line of scrimmage. So you could see a lot more plays running Green Bay this year, quite frankly. Listen, we're into the 18th round. Before we get to the 18th round, we should talk about the 15th round. There are some highly polarizing tight ends that went off in that round. We saw a couple of New England Patriots that represent some pretty good upside, including one Patriot that I know Terp likes quite a bit. And then as we move on in the 16th round, 3 free agent running backs go off the board there. Some teams staking their claims to those players here in the Fantasy Pros Championship live draft coverage here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Eric Balkman, Dave Terpoilli. Once again, all 12 of these drafters shooting for a $1 million grand prize this year. You can join them at myffpc.com and join this competition. $350. If you buy 3 teams, you get a $50 discount on the third. myffpc.com is where you can play for not 1, but $2 million grand prizes this year. Very excited to bring that to you. Very excited to bring in the home stretch of this draft. Coming up after this, Eric Balkman, Dave Terpoilli on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. We'll be analyzing these teams right after this. Breece Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players. I'm sure you have too, Kev. Had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with 2 wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week 1, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid-third.
Right. He may go 101 or RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that even if he's healthy in spring and the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I still like if I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like he's on a pitch count. Like I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like he's still going to get the high value touches. So yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So like if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get 2 wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes you think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like because of we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week 1. This is not, we'll see what happens. We're taking it day by day. We're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week 1. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well. Minutes until the top of the hour here on the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Eric Balkman coming at you with my good buddy Dave Terpoilli, longtime FFPC league player and former multi-league FFPC champion. We are watching a draft unfold. This is a real draft. This is not a drill, people. Fantasy Pros Championship, $1 million grand prize here. These guys, players, all plunked down $350 to take their shot at a $1 million grand prize here tonight. We only have about 2.5 rounds left. I want to, before we get into some team analysis here, to take you all the way up to the 9 o'clock hour when Garrett Price and the Dynasty Nerds will take over your airwaves. I want to talk about the 15th round here. So Trey McBride has been kind of a polarizing tight end so far this year, Terp. A guy that I think I've talked to a lot of people thinking he's going to take a step forward. I think there's also a decent number of people that think that this is not an offense that they want to be in business with. Trey McBride goes to King State Kings. This is their third tight end off the board to pair with Schultz and Gesicki. And I think even if you're not a McBride fan, you could see why he did this tonight. He's got to pick one of these week to week, but hopefully he hits on one of these because then they could be an every week starter for him.
To me, Trey McBride's the best tight end on that team. I mean, he's a guy that I would probably start from day one. I mean, I know the offense isn't good, but I can easily see a path where he's the number one receiver, on the whole team. I mean, Marquise Brown, obviously he has plenty of talent, but he hasn't really figured it out to like that level as being the guy. I mean, he couldn't really figure it out with Lamar Jackson. So what makes people think that, Kyler Murray and, Colt McCoy or whoever's playing quarterback for them will unlock his potential. I like Marquise Brown, but you always try to find these late tight ends who can be a guy as first or second as, in targets. And Trey McBride easily has a path to get there. I mean, what receivers are really overly excited in my eyes? There really isn't any. Trey McBride to me is one of the best tight end targets this year on a team that most people are going to ignore, but 15th round, I mean, it's a slam dunk for me.
Evan Lazar, who covers the New England Patriots for is it for the team, Patriots.com. He said that Strong could actually complement Stevenson, comparing him to the Thunder and Lightning backfield, where Stevenson would be the Thunder and Strong would be the Lightning. Now, Strong only had 17 touches last year. That was his rookie season. He has 4.37 speed, 4,500 rushing yards, and 40 touchdowns at South Dakota State. Also caught 62 passes for over 500 yards. Terp, he normally goes at the 1602 in Fantasy Pros drafts. As I look at it tonight, he goes off the board at the 1502, a full round ahead of where he normally goes. Given that what we know about the New England Patriots running back situation over the course of the last decade plus, are we going to see Pierre Strong even move further up draft boards going forward here as we get into July?
If they don't add anybody, obviously there's Dalvin Cook whispers, and obviously the running backs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. They probably won't add anybody else. So to me, Pierre Strong's, we talk about handcuffs to have potential. You never know what you're getting from Bill Belichick. He just paid Devontae Parker. Mm-hmm. We all saw Ramondre Stevenson last year and how good he was, but is there anything that makes you think that he could be the guy and he's going to be the guy? They're going to give him 20 plus touches every game and he's going to be the fantasy monster he was this year. What's been proven, over Bill Belichick's time that will show you that? I mean, Damian Harris, we all remember him. And last year he was kind of an afterthought to Stevenson. So to me, Pierre Strong's a great pick. I mean, 15th round, looks like he went here. No issues with that pick at all. I mean, I was a little late to the Pierre Strong party. Todd Burrows, who, has probably been on the show before, good friend of mine. He's a guy that's really been talking him up. And it makes a ton of sense because you with Bill Belichick, you just never know what you're going to get. And Pierre Strong has plenty of potential. He's a very, very, you saw him in flashes, show that potential. And right now he's the guy behind Stevenson. One minor injury, one Stevenson fumble. He could be the guy very easily with Bill Belichick.
New England had the opportunity to bring Damian Harris back, and they let him go to Buffalo in favor of Pierre Strong.
And so far, I've added nobody.
And the other thing, too, is they had James Robinson on this team. They let him go, too.
Said perfectly.
And Pierre Strong is still there. So, Rich Bill, you chiming in. He thinks that once training camp starts, we're going to see Strong move up on another couple of rounds. So get your shares of Strong in the 15th or 16th round right now.
Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. But if you look at guys like Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, who are going to continue to move up draft boards, they're like you said, they're one signing away from being complete dust in drafts.
Right. But
so,
that's
like, don't overdo
you're
it. Don't be,
but Terp, you're talking about a 15th round pick, right?
exactly. Don't overdo it. Don't be getting too crazy with it. But definitely add these guys, because if they don't add anybody, you're looking at just tons of potential in both players.
Right, and then you don't have to draft them in July and August because you already got the 15th round, 16th round shares of them
Correct.
in June, which is the way to do it. Okay, let's. And by the way, Kev Wheeler, former guest co-host of the show,
legend,
loves the Pierre Strong pick, loves the Trey McBride pick here tonight as well. Who is your favorite, Terp, of the free agent running backs that went in the 16th round? Ezekiel Elliott, Zachary Watson took him right after that. Right before that, Kareem Hunt went to Kings State Kings. And Darren Larson actually took Leonard Fournette here in the 16th round. Do you have a favorite among those three running backs that are free agents right now? By the way, the other big one that is a free agent right now could be signing with Miami, maybe somebody else, maybe waiting out on something better, is Dalvin Cook. He went all the way up in the 6th round. Is that too big of a disparity between Elliott, Hunt, and Fournette as compared to Cook? When you're talking about 10 rounds of difference?
I don't see the Dalvin Cook love. I'm sorry. He's not a guy that I'll be drafting. What we keep talking about it almost every show we talk about him. What is best case scenario? People say it's Miami. Is it really Miami? I mean, Jeff Wilson, Mostert, A-Chain. I mean, they're all there. I love A-Chain. I think he, could, be the best back there by the end of the season. So to me, Dalvin Cook's getting overdrafted 6th round with some of these guys that you're drafting around them. I'll pass. Back to the other question. To me, it's Fournette, and it's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's Zeke Elliott going to get you? Kareem Hunt, he wasn't great last year. He let a ton of fantasy owners down last year that drafted him.
He couldn't break tackles.
Thinking he was going to be the Thunder and Lightning with Nick Chubb, and he was bad last year. Not even. There was never a time when you were like feeling good about your Kareem Hunt draft pick. So to me, Fournette's the guy that if you're worried about somebody coming in and screwing up your fantasy parade, it's Fournette, because he still has gas in the tank. He can catch the ball. He can pass block very, very well. And, he's a guy that, to me, makes a ton of sense for the Jets. He's a guy that could be if Breece Hall's not 100%, he's a guy that makes a ton of sense. I don't personally want him to go there. I would love for him to go to like a place like Tampa Bay, Cincinnati. That'd be awesome for me, because I'm not in the Joe Mixon camp like most are. But I mean, Fournette to me is clear, and it's not even close. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Hunt's not picked up at all. And Ezekiel Elliott, it doesn't matter who picks him up; he's just a dust bucket.
The Fournette thing, I think, scares me a little bit if I'm going heavy on Rachaad White, because to me, Fournette could sign with anybody. But, man, if he comes back to Tampa Bay, the Rachaad White, he went in, the 6th round tonight? All of a sudden, that's not looking like such a great pick anymore.
No.
Rachaad White has been an expert in jumping through the minefield of the first wave of NFL free agency, the NFL draft, the next wave of free agency, and pretty much the whole summer so far. But how long can he keep doing that? How long will Tampa not, add some more competition in the backfield that could, A, take touches away from Rachaad White, but also B, lighten the load on him and maybe give White the opportunity to make more plays? I don't know. All I know is you draft him in the 6th round. Buyer beware on that, because it could go bad for White. And Fournette, and the chat room was with you, by the way. But they love Fournette in the 16th round. There's a lot of people in there drafting a lot of Leonard Fournette here late. So I think there's a lot to like about him. And he doesn't have to go to Tampa Bay, as you pointed out, to get.
There's plenty of very good spots for him where he could fall that make a ton of sense.
Yeah, Kev Wheeler. He's not going back to Tampa. He wants to keep.
I agree with Kev there. There's no chance he's going back to Tampa.
All right, moving on, guys, as we are only a couple picks left in this draft tonight. We'll move on to the 17th round. I wanted to bring this up with you. Robert Schogel ends up taking Cordarrelle Patterson. Now, he doesn't have Bijan Robinson on this team. And I think, you're a Robinson guy. So am I. I think he's going to be very, very good this season. I think he returns first-round value, or at least second-round value, as a slam dunk for him. But Cordarrelle Patterson, the guy behind him, what do we make of him? Are we undervaluing him, given that he can catch passes, given that he does not have a ton of tread on the tires and he's done it before? I feel like I look at Cordarrelle Patterson in the 17th round. I'm like, my goodness, if he were to go higher, all of a sudden, And I know Tyler Algier's there too, but I think Patterson's the guy you want because he is the pass catcher of those two backups.
If you believe in the Falcons offense, you have to draft Patterson late. And the reason I say that is because you might not get it out of the backfield, but he could easily be the second receiver on this team. Don't forget, he was a receiver coming out of college. He was a receiver early on in his career. And I mean, he pretty much had no other option but to go to running back. You saw flashes 2 years ago, last year, of Patterson being a very, very, very good fantasy back early in the season. Yes, he fades and all that stuff. He's not getting above Bijan Robinson. Let's not get crazy here. But if you believe in Ritter and you believe in, the big three, he to me is a clear 4 and a clear, guy that's going to get plenty of work. I mean, whether the production comes with it, but if Bijan Robinson gets hurt, gets nicked up, or Drake London gets, nicked up, I feel like Cordarrelle Patterson could be a positive fantasy force. And again, when you're drafting these 16th, 17th, 18th round draft picks, you're looking for a big injury or something like that. I mean, no one risks, wants injuries, but that's what you are hoping for to get the guy that's going to be possibly starting. But if you can just get 2 to 3 week windows of, small injuries, stuff like that, and just get to be able to take advantage of it, that'll separate you so much from other teams.
The 18th round presented the first Dallas Cowboys tight end off the board. Terp, Jake Ferguson goes tonight as the 28th tight end at the 1806 to Darren Larson. What do you make of Jake Ferguson this year in fantasy? Because again, tight end premium format, you want to get starting tight ends. He's going to be a starting tight end in Dallas. I guess the question is not necessarily what does the departure of Dalton Schultz mean, but the addition of Brandon Cooks and the addition of the new offensive coordinator there, who's not Linehan, Schottenheimer. Brian Schottenheimer's the new OC there, who loves to slow things down. Your thoughts on Ferguson here in the 18th round?
To me, Ferguson's a perfect pick if you're drafting Kelsey or Mark Andrews as a second tight end with upside in an offense that's, obviously very high power with a ton of talent. Give him some time to figure it out, and he could be, a flex option for you down the stretch. I don't take it all depends on structure. Structure is a big thing with me in every draft, and it's probably the number one thing I look at going into every draft. Obviously, getting your guys, but if you're taking let's go through Dalton Schultz and Mike Gesicki and Trey McBride, I don't know how you added Jake Ferguson to that room because you're going back to the same dilemma. You got to start one, who you start. And if you're making the wrong decision early in the season, you're going to get flustered and it's probably never going to work out for you. So to me, Ferguson is a perfect option for a team that you're stacking tight end early with obviously Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson type of situation. And he's just a guy that you don't need him to play right away. And he could also be an easy cut candidate for you. Or if things work out in Dallas and he's the guy, you have a very, very solid flex option that you got at no draft capital.
Terp, in the 8th spot tonight, it was Chad Weezer, and he drafted Josh Allen early. That was his only quarterback. Fine, that's like normal. That's totally cool. I'm on board with that. He pounded a lot of running backs, got a lot of receivers on this team. Do you think the fact that he got his quarterback early and then he didn't get a tight end until the 8th round, Evan Engram and Higbee in the 8th and 10th round, then he adds 2 more tight ends on. Is that overkill to have 4 tight ends on your roster, or is there something to be said when you're drafting in late June to wait on tight end and draft 4 options and see which one of them is taking a step forward, see which one of them is getting steamed up closer to training camp? Because we're going to have 2 waiver wires before the start of the season in this competition. So he's going to have the opportunity to drop these guys if they're not performing. What do you make about that specific team construction going with 4 tight ends?
I don't personally mind it. I mean, I would think Evan Engram is going to be the guy. Tyler Higbee is going to be a close second, who I think is going to get peppered with a lot of targets. I don't really like the Zach Ertz pick. It's not just the structure based or anything like that. You could easily put another upside running back in there or another upside receiver, and I would have been fine with it. The Michael Mayer pick, I have no issues with whatsoever. I mean, he could easily, be second in that team in receptions. I mean, you could see a path for it. I'm not saying it's likely. But behind Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and then Michael Mayer, if they, figure it out and, Josh McDaniels gets them the ball, it's possible. I mean, he was he was supposed to be a first-round pick that fell to the 2nd round and fell in a great spot because it's just him and I believe Austin Hooper. Not really worried about him. So the 20th round draft pick in this type of format I love, but you could have easily put in, like you said, he drafted Josh Allen. Maybe take a CJ Stroud there or Matthew Stafford, somebody like that, possibly that could have been, a little more of a safer pick because Zach Ertz had one of the worst knee injuries last year. I don't see him being.
And he's not a young man.
Soon.
Yeah.
He's not a young man. He could easily be cut. He's on a terrible team. There's no he's a tough Philadelphia Eagle. I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagle fan. For everybody that didn't know that, now. Zach Ertz is as tough as they come. But what's he got to prove anymore in his career?
Yeah.
He's on a bad team. I could easily see him getting cut early in the season, trying to pick up somewhere late, maybe back to Philadelphia or somewhere else, down at the end of the season, trying to, end his career on the right note because it's not going well in Arizona. And they're a team that is better a chance to find Caleb Williams than they do actually winning games this year.
Terp, the draft is done. I want to focus on a few of the teams we haven't talked about a whole lot tonight. And I'm going to start things off with Team 2. That's Steve Hawley's team, the former six-figure winner here in high-stakes fantasy football, drafting in the second spot. He ends up with Prescott and Anthony Richardson as his quarterbacks. Running backs are Ramondre Stevenson, Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson, Tyler Algier, Deontay Foreman, Pierre Strong, Joshua Kelly. Receivers, Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, Zay Flowers, Tank Dell, and then the tight ends, Dallas Goedert, Chego Okonkwo, Logan Thomas as well in this team. And I think, this is the type of team I would draft where if I want to be weak somewhere, it's going to be weak at my second running back and my running back depth. He's got guys like Cook, Gibson, Strong that could hit. He pairs Strong with Ramondre Stevenson for a little safety there as well. So I think if the running backs come through, this is a pretty talented team. I really like the way that Hawley put this squad together.
One of the best teams in the league, structure-wise, just overall, I totally agree with you. We talked about the Mike Williams pick. We talked about the Zay Flowers pick. There's plenty of Dak Prescott and Anthony Richardson when you got on 11th and 13th round. I don't mind that. Dak Prescott's probably going to be your guy early. And if Richardson turns into what some people think he's going to turn into with his rushing upside, he could easily be a league winner for you. So I have no downside. Pierre Strong, we talked about. Joshua Kelly, maybe not crazy about. Love Tank Dell, big Tank Dell guy. I easily think he could be the best receiver in Houston this year. I don't see there many. Logan Thomas, who I like that ad. I mean, if you
if you pay attention to the drumbeat in Washington, it seems like the Commanders are going to be using their tight ends more.
And they don't really. They have him, Bates, and there's a couple other guys who are will get some press. But Logan Thomas is the clear veteran, the clear guy who's shown it before. So I drafted him, and I'm pretty sure my Fantasy Pros draft that we did on the live stream. So when you're getting him in the 18th round, he could easily be cut. And when you draft these guys this late, you're not expecting much. You're expecting them to show something early in the season or maybe have some potential. And if not, you move on. You pick somebody up off waivers.
I want to get back to Team 3. That was Zachary Watson's team, and I knew I wanted to touch back on this because you weren't a huge fan of the start. Here's how it ended up. Trevor Lawrence and Brock Purdy at quarterback, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker. You're looking at A.J. Dillon, Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, Ezekiel Elliott at running back. Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas, Romeo Doubs, Zay Jones, DJ Chark, Donovan Peoples-Jones at receiver. Tight ends are Travis Kelce, Irv Smith. So I look at this squad and Kelce obviously at tight end, you're going to be way ahead of everybody each and every week as long as he stays healthy. I think the running back depth leads a little bit to be desired. I'm not worried about Jacobs just not reporting. I think he's going to play. Will he return?
All these guys will be playing. None of these guys can sit out. They don't have any leverage.
Right. And the better question is, will he return second round value? That I'm not sure of. I like the stabs he took at receiver, for sure. With a lot of these guys like Dobbs and Thomas and Evans or whatever.
I like Zay Jones. I like Chark. I think Chark could easily be the best receiver in Carolina.
And DPJ in the 19th round. I mean, we don't know. And I know Rich Billion, and there's a lot of people that think that it's going to be Elijah Moore, but DPJ is still there as well. So I look at this team, not my favorite team, not the type of team I would have drafted, but I've seen plenty of teams that I would not have drafted be very successful. I think if a few things break right for Watson's team here tonight, it could be really good in this format. I think you're a little bit less bullish than I am, though.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, once you passed on Patrick Mahomes, I was trying to find a way to get better and look at the team, like try to be objectively on it, and I just don't. The upside's just not there. It's just I feel like there's a bunch of players that just look kind of the same. Evans and Scary Terry. I mean, yeah, they both have potential, but talking about Sam Howell and Baker Mayfield, and they're guys that you got to pretty much start every week. So it's not for me. Michael Thomas is probably one of the biggest questions in fantasy football this year. Is he Michael Thomas of old? Is he 70% of Michael Thomas are old? Is he just going to play one game like he did last year and just pretty much go, into hiding? So sorry, I can't say anything nice about it.
And that's fine. You're bringing the real, which we appreciate. Christopher Bowen, we liked his squad from the 5 spot tonight. There's a significant amount to like there. We talked about Palazzo and Larson's teams quite a bit. We did like Chad Weezer's team here from the 8 spot for sure. I know we talked about that quite a bit. Thomas O'Brien had a solid team from the 9 spot. We talked about Dulcich and Kincaid here at the 9-10 spot after he drafted Bijan Robinson, Jalen Hurts early and pounded all these receivers. I feel like we brought up a lot of Robert Schogel's picks tonight. Let's talk about Greg McLean's team from the 11 spot tonight. Quarterbacks are Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. Running backs, Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris, Rashad White, James Cook, Brian Robinson, Zach Evans, and Keontae Ingram. Receivers, Garrett Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Kirk, Alan Lazard, Michael Gallup, Michael Wilson. Tight ends, Pat Freiermuth and Gerald Everett. When I look at this team, I like the running back depth. You remember you only have to start 2 receivers in this format. So you look at Wilson, Jeudy, Kirk as your top 3. Lazard, you can pepper in there every so often at the, when you need to. Obviously, Gallup could be a bounce back guy this year. And speaking of bounce backs, Rodgers and Wilson could be big bounce back guys this year. I think this is a competitive squad that Greg McLean put together.
Definitely competitive squad. Definitely betting on the Jets offense. I mean, there's a ton of potential. I'm betting on the Broncos offense, who I like this year as a bounce back spot. I mean, like I said, there's a couple guys on this team I'm not personally in love with players, but overall, the structure is solid. I mean, if the quarterbacks hit, it's going to be a team that's going to be a force down the stretch in this league.
All right, Terp, let's wrap things up here tonight. Number one, I want to thank all the drafters who made this draft possible. The Better Boss chimed in. Is the $1 million team in here tonight? Well, we won't know that for a while, but you can draft your own $1 million team or potential $1 million team at myffpc.com. Try to win $1 million. It's only going to cost you $350 to draft this squad. Drafts are filling up every day. You don't have to wait for long. Terp's been in a few of these already as well. He will continue to bring us all the great dialogue that you do on all these live streams. Maybe we'll do a few more on the Better Sports Network as well. Follow Dave on Twitter at Dave Terp. Dave, thank you so much.
Have a good one, guys.
MyFFPC.com is your home for season-long fantasy football. $1 million grand prize in the FFPC main event. $1 million grand prize in the Fantasy Pros Championship. So don't forget to register there. And if you want to play Dynasty Fantasy Football, you can do that year-round. MyFFPC.com is your home for Dynasty Fantasy Football. We have also leagues there at the $100 level all the way up to the $5,000 level. And if you just want to dip your toes in, compete against 11 other owners, just $5. We'll get you into a best ball league at myffpc.com. No high stakes fantasy football show next week as I am on assignment. We will return in 2 weeks with Chris Allen from Fantasy Life. He will be my guest. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody out there. Go to myffpc.com and draft now. Dynasty Nerds with Garrett Price up next.